I'm so fucking smart, bro.
Yeah, it's just to say, I mean, realism just in some notion of realism is just to say that the world is always going to outstrip our ability to describe it.
I think that's got to be true.
Gotta be.
Gotta be.
Just gotta be.
See,
Any representation is going to be incomplete.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it becomes the thing. There's no distinction between it.
Tell that to identity theorists of truth.
I don't talk to those people.
How do you know? How do you know that you don't?
Because the impossibility of the contrary.
Ooh.
Right.
Darth Dawkins entered a Simon Says competition, and then the guy said, Simon Says, say God exists. And then Darth Dawkins said, the contrary is impossible. And he didn't get out.
Nice.
Thank you.
I thought you might be going there, but I was hopeful.
Yeah. Usually we're on the same page.
Oh, Russell's here. Thank God. Did anyone see that guy that Theosophical Wanderings had on his panel yesterday? I forget his name. I've heard him talk.
Yeah, I recorded the whole thing. You want to watch it?
What was his name?
David Packman?
Patterson? Paulman. Yeah. Was it good? I only listened to like 5 seconds of it.
Oh, I
was
like, I'm not a Bible guy, but you probably would have liked it. Except for Apollo and Coco got accepted at the same time, and then they passed the mic to Coco first, and then Coco just asked. So like it was, and then Apollo left. So, but I mean, he was yapping about the resurrection. I mean, holy mog. Hey, Darth Dawkins.
Look at this guy. Oh boy, hanging out at the beach. So why did you invite me up?
Yeah, prove God exists.
I didn't hear you.
He said prove God exists.
Well, why are you making that request?
Yo, what's up, Darth? What's up, man? It's been a long time.
I said, why are you insist that I prove God? Do you want me to falsify your God denialism or change your status of neutrality?
Neutrality.
Okay.
First one.
Okay. Well, that's what we need to discuss right there. So,
yeah. So basically,
agnosticism.
what
all right. Look. If you're going to be rude, I'll just leave. I don't put up
stop
with this
being rude.
nonsense.
I was just answering the question. Sorry.
Now, I get invited onto a lot of streams, and I'm not suggesting that you were deliberately trying to be rude, but I experience a lot of bad behavior, and I don't put up with it. I just leave. So even if you disagree with me, you're going to learn a lot, okay? So we're going to discuss the issue of neutrality toward God, okay? And then after that, we can get onto the discussion as to the verification or falsification of God. So agnosticism is a self-identification. It's a self-representation. It does not settle the issue that someone is, in fact, neutral toward the existence of God. Okay, so we have that clear. So agnosticism is a self-identification, usually represented by saying, I don't know. Okay?
Right.
When we examine agnosticism, it turns out that the agnostics are not formally denying God, but they are informally denying God indirectly. So the refusal to acknowledge the necessity of God when speaking about the world constitutes an indirect, informal denial of God while invoking a self-representation of neutrality. So the self-representation is inconsistent with the actual indirect denial of God. Okay?
This is for a revelatory God? which is the only possible God. Is that right?
No, we're not. We're not even. No, you could conceptualize a non-revelatory God, but so there is anyone who claims they're neutral toward the existence of God is typically uneducated on the matter. So everyone who refuses to acknowledge the necessity of God is either directly or indirectly denying God. So that makes every non-theist an atheist. Okay.
In like
So
the local
now,
sense or the global sense?
no, it's global. Local atheism is terminology like positive and negative atheism that is sometimes used by certain philosophical wonks in their own the confines of their own treatises, but it's a ridiculous qualification. Okay. Because they're actually operating in principle that neutrality toward God is a viable option. Okay, once you remove the idea,
Wait, it is though, isn't it?
is what?
Neutrality towards God, like
Well, didn't you hear what I just said?
right, but I get that you can say like everything you do either refers to or doesn't refer to God, but that's a separate issue on whether you know it or not. Right? There's like a
No. Knowledge.
Claim, like a
Okay, so
claim there.
okay, so are you aware epistemically that knowledge is a subcategory of belief states?
Yeah.
Okay, so knowledge is just a fine line between belief states. Okay, so we call things knowledge when they pass a line of demarcation, which may be different from individual to individual, but we call something knowledge if it passes a line of demarcation where one has greater warrant and justification for believing in a proposition rather than lesser. So the distinction between knowing and believing is really in most conversations it's trivial, it's unimportant. Okay?
You said it's dependent on justification. But
Well,
rarely.
No, because rarely will people have belief states for which they will not offer some level of warrant or justification. So in philosophy, they might refer to knowledge as JTB, justified true belief, but rarely are you going to find somebody both at a lay level or a professional level that says, I believe X is true, but I have no warrant and justification for that. It's very hard to find somebody who does that. Okay? So even belief states are considered to have or should be considered to have warrant justification. It's just that when in philosophy, we want to emphasize justification that passes, in my view, that line of demarcation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So there is no defensible claim of neutrality toward God, although people persist in identifying as neutral toward God. Okay, so local atheism, for those of you who may not be familiar with, versus global atheism. Local atheism is the practice of denying one or more gods, but not universalizing that and say there is no God or gods. But it's kind of ridiculous because then you're making every theist into an atheist, which is a contradiction in terms.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Only a local atheist, though, not a global one.
No, well, if I was talking with some philosophical wonk, and I don't mean that insultively, like somebody, an academic, I could acquiesce momentarily, but it's really not good in the dialectic to talk about global versus local, because then what you're saying, every person who believes in a god or gods, right, would be classified as a local atheist. But then
you're just saying it's not useful dialectically.
No, it's a contradiction in terms. So a theist is an atheist?
Well, not in
A is in the negation.
A theist is a local atheist in some concern. Yeah.
No. Unless somebody wants to do this ill-informed type of this nomenclature. Okay, so A in atheism modifies theos, not ism. Okay, it's the negation of theism.
Right. Yeah, that's fine.
So
can I give you an argument against your view?
Yeah, can you just give me 30 more seconds?
Yeah,
we can do that.
So to talk about local atheists just simply means you disbelieve in one or more gods. Okay. And that's true. That's true of everybody. It would be insane to say that I believe in gods that would constitute being mutually exclusive. Anyway, go ahead, sir.
Okay. Here's my argument against your view.
Okay, so I just wanted to talk about your agnostic thing. Can I try to steal Manu? Is that okay?
Wait a minute. Are you the one who said you're going to refute what I said?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so let me just try to steal Manu. You tell me if I got you wrong. You want to say agnosticism, which is the belief that you're undecided about God, who is understood as a necessary entity, is impossible, not from formally, but informally or indirectly, right?
Yeah, agnosticism is the claim of neutrality, but the agnostic is not neutral because he indirectly denies God.
Right, and the reason for that is because the agnostic has to assert that it's possible that God, a necessary being, doesn't exist, right?
No. An agnostic is the agnostic position is to claim to suspend judgment. Okay.
Yeah,
but
right.
the agnostic hasn't suspended judgment. The agnostic has made a deliberate choice to reject the non-negotiable necessity of God.
Right, in virtue of the fact that they say it's possible that this necessary God does not exist, right?
No, the agnostic would say in effect, God is optional. But to say that God is optional is to deny his non-negotiable necessity.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, which is just to say that it's, which is just to say that it's possible that this necessary entity doesn't exist. If you say it's possible that a necessary doesn't exist, you're actually saying it doesn't exist. Same thing, right?
Well, upon analysis, to say God is optional is to deny God, because the very concept of God is his necessity or the ground of being.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So here's the problem. So the agnostic is merely saying it's epistemically possible God doesn't exist. Do you know what that means?
Yeah, but that's not going to fly. But continue.
Yeah, so to say something is epistemically possible means that P is possibly false or possible for all that I know. Now, the relevant part of God's necessity is not in epistemic. It's not epistemically necessary. That's silly. He's metaphysically necessary. And the agnostic is saying they're agnostic about him being metaphysically necessary or possibly unnecessary. So if you ask, the agnostic, is it possible that God is not necessary metaphysically? They say, I'm agnostic. I don't know.
Okay. Well, the problem with that is you're not cognizant of the fact that epistemology and ontology are reciprocal. They depend upon each other. So if God is metaphysically necessary, then he would then be necessary for epistemic conditions as well. Because epistemology require. Okay, does one's theory of knowledge require an ontological framework?
But it's
but that's irrelevant to the epistemic
though.
modality.
No. It's not irrelevant. Okay, can you have a viable epistemology with no ontological framework?
Of course not. There needs to be ontology for you to have a theory of knowledge.
So you can't just sit there and bifurcate epistemology from ontology. They depend upon each other.
Of course you can, based on what it means to talk about.
No, you can't. Because
I think you've been debunked, man. You're not giving a coherent response.
you're quite mistaken. Okay, does one's theory of ability to know things derive and depend upon the ontology or the frame of reference?
Yeah, there has to be a truth, like a external fact that allows you to know things.
Then you cannot wall them off from each other.
Well, of course you can, because we don't have to know that thing.
How many times do I have to explain this
sir,
to you?
You're crashing out because you're in a hole,
once.
man.
No, I'm not. Okay, listen, if you're going to be fucking rude with me and pull that teenage maneuver saying I'm crashing out, then I'm going to stop talking with you.
Well, you are crashing out, sir.
Okay, have a nice day. You're done. I'm no longer talking.
You've been debunked, sir.
I don't tolerate. See, this is why I don't come into panels like this.
And I did it while
I have to deal with I have to deal with assholes like you. I don't mind you vigorously disagree with me, but when you're pulling these teenage punk ass, it's you. Let me block this. Make sure. Oh, it's you. I didn't realize it. You're an asshole. Bye. See you later. Yeah, you see, this guy's a pathological liar, and he's deliberate. This is what Tupac does.
Is that the same
Unfortunately
Tupac
for
guy?
him, okay. Hey, listen. Either you remove him, or I'm gone, because this guy's a
Tupac
stalker and a troll.
out of here.
I don't know why we let
He's a pathological liar.
We should probably
Okay, remove
just
him or
Wait,
I'm God,
Cosmic, you
because
need
he
to
is a
kick
he is
Tupac.
a
This guy
pathological
this
liar.
guy harasses
Okay,
Darth all the time.
okay,
Get him out of
yeah,
here.
But
Please,
remove
Cosmic.
him or I'm gone.
Remove him.
Okay, this
aren't
guy
all
is a
atheists
Listen,
pathological liars?
Thank
I
you.
don't say
Darth,
this like
Darth, we removed him. Darth, we
Why are you so
removed him.
childish?
we
man?
got rid
We
of him.
removed him. You're safe.
this is why I get really indignant with that
I
asshole.
understand.
You're
Let me
among
just
friends now.
let me speak for 60 seconds, okay? He is a supreme asshole. Why?
Yeah.
Not because he vigorously opposes my content. It's because he's a pathological liar. He is a contrarian. I have dealt with him extensively on Discord and on Clubhouse, and he is also somebody who engages in stalking behavior of myself as well. And he comes under different screen names. And what he will do is he will just debate lying about things that he believes in. And he's not sincere at all. Okay. He is literally an internet troll. Okay.
Weird behavior. That's
Yeah,
I wanted
that
to. I
Tupac.
wanted
And
to.
I hate that
childish,
Tupac. I didn't
too.
know that was Tupac.
Yeah.
I
Tupac
wanted
is an
to.
absolute, he's a demonic type of an individual.
You're among friends though now, Darth.
Okay.
It's good to see you again,
Well,
Darth.
He's
I wanted to
childish.
ask something. And by the way, sorry about that. Sorry about the troll. But like,
Okay.
I
Well,
think the last
I'm
time.
grateful that you got rid of him. Thank you. That usually doesn't happen.
No,
Yeah. So
we're good
I
guys
think.
here.
I
I'm
think.
accepting gifts.
I think I've heard you say like or I mean I've asked you this before. You probably don't remember, but like I was asking if there was an argument for the claim that God is the necessary precondition for knowledge, and I think you said it's self-authenticating. Is that the response you would still go for?
Well, that's a part of it. So we would the transcendental argument for God is just not a mere philosophical stipulation. It is undergirded by a revelational model. So when we approach the issue of God, we're either operating in principle that we're in an environment or a model of reality that is revelational of God by God to us, or we're operating in principle that we're in a non-revelational status. So given
Yeah.
that foundation, God reveals himself, then from an ontological point of view, from that revelation, God is the single causal necessary precondition. And we know that by
Right.
virtue, and we could only know it by virtue of God's revelation. Once we look past that, we say God being the single causal ground of being, who is characterized as the sum of all perfections, because he is the sum of all perfections, this is the only ontological foundation by which we could have access to truth, knowledge, reason, intelligibility, because God being the single causal first principle has to actualize and sustain that. If that is rejected, one will have to explain how their foundational ontology provides for these capacities. And that's going to be an impossibility.
Yeah. That's an interesting view, and I want to say like, excuse me from a little slow. You probably know way more about this stuff than me. I guess I'm just curious. Like, so if somebody were to ask, like, what's the argument that that's necessary for truth, logic, reason, and intelligibility? Would you just say it's self-evident, or like, what would you say if they were to ask for that
No,
argument?
I would say it's evident first and foremost, as I said, by virtue of God's revelation. But when we look at the ontological characteristics of that revelation, that in order to speak intelligibly about our world, the world is going to have to be actualized. And that just doesn't mean first cause. It means in the present as well. It's going to have to be actualized by a single causal principle that controls everything. Because if you don't have a single ultimate actualizer or ground of being, then what you now have is chaos. Because now not any one thing controls everything. And so if let's say somebody says that there are two or more foundational principles, each of which are absolute. Well, by definition, none of them would be ultimate, because an ultimate cannot have any peers. So if you have several different so-called absolutes, which you wouldn't be able even to know that they were absolute, then you don't have one thing controlling. And so what one thing might implement, the other might take away. So you need a single causal principle that actualizes the unity and diversity of the world. So a fundamental parameter of existence and intelligibility is the unity and diversity, right? So without unity and diversity, that there are identity states and identity states that are distinct and discrete from other identity states, right? You have to have something that ontologically actualizes that and sustains it. And so when you have a single causal first principle that is the sum of all perfections, the self-revealing God, God then actualizes according to his mind, his purpose, and his plan, and of course his character, the fundamental parameters of unity and diversity. If that revelational environment is rejected, then the rejecter is going to have to account for what actualizes the unity and diversity. And that's the precise question that I gave to Graham Oppie in an AMA, and he couldn't answer it. All he could say is, well, I see books on my shelf. So the smartest atheist in the world, or one of the smartest atheists in the world, couldn't answer that basic question.
Yeah, and I did see your
We all
talk
know you
with him, and
cooked him.
I thought you did way better than him. I mean, out of curiosity, just because like I've been listening to you a lot, and I'm sort of getting convinced by a lot you say, but there's just like one thing I struggle with, where it's like, because you say like, okay, there needs to be like an ultimate concrete actualizer for all these identity states. Like, what if, like, theoretically, because like I've struggled with this before, what if somebody were to ask, well, what's the argument for that? Like, when I get to that point, I don't know what to tell them. So, what would you say?
Well, typically that request is typically a stall, dodge, and delay tactic. But occasionally somebody is being sincere about that, which is fine. So the fundamental parameter of unity and diversity in the world, okay, if it is not actualized by a single causal first principle, how do they account for the realness of unity and diversity? It's very closely related to the one and the many problem in philosophy. What is it that is ultimate? Is it the unity of the world or the diversity of the world? And outside the Christian worldview, that cannot be grounded.
Yeah, so let me, because I've actually tried, because I know, I think I've heard you say this before, so I tried saying like, okay, well, how do you account for the unity and diversity if you don't believe in this? And the typical response that's given to me, at least, is that's a question, not an argument, right? And they're asking, and they'll tell
No,
me
it's
an argument. Don't ask
it's
me a
an
question.
argument. It's an argument put in the form of a question.
Yeah.
Because what we're doing is we're giving a positive propositional representation of the Christian worldview of God being the ultimacy of reality. We're giving a positive representation first, followed by a reductio ad absurdum, the impossibility of the contrary. So when we ask them to give an account of that in the form of a question, we're demonstrating the reductio ad absurdum.
Yeah, so
Because,
is there any way?
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just wondering, is there any way I can, like, so I know you're saying it's like, it's a question, it's an argument in the form of a question. Is there any way I could just like state it as an argument without asking the question like directly?
Yeah. The self-revealing God, who is the sum of all perfection, the ground of all being, reveals himself in creation as that which actualizes everything because he is perfect, with the impossibility of its negation.
Yeah, so now here's one curiosity. Like, what if somebody said, well, isn't that just begging the question? When you say he reveals himself, that's assuming that he exists, which is exactly what's under dispute. Well, what would you say to that?
So if one is going to apply the notion of circular, well, first of all, it's not a circular argument. It may entail a kind of circular reasoning, but if you're going to use the so-called circular reasoning fallacy and you universalize it, then you forfeit the ability to make any intelligible predications. Okay. Because you're not going to have any single proposition that is self-authoritative. Therefore, you won't be able to have any contingently authoritative propositions. So a lot of, and this isn't directed at you or anyone in the room, but I get a lot of numbskulls out there that go, well, that's circular reasoning. Well, when we're talking about the ultimate frame of reference, right? In order to know the ultimate frame of reference, it has to communicate authoritatively independent of anything else. Because if it required an extrinsic or some independent source to verify it, then it wouldn't be the ultimate source or authority. So the charge of circular reasoning it's quite lame.
Okay, so basically, like, so in other words, if somebody were to tell me, well, wait, that's just begging the question, basically, I should just say, yeah, what's the problem with that? It just is begging the question.
I would say begging the question only deals with contingent truths.
Yeah. I mean, what, because, like, I guess I'm wondering,
yeah.
you know, what if it's like a person who, like, the person is just like, look, I just want to see the non-circular reason. Would I just say there is none? Is that what I'd have to say?
Well, then if that's your universal criterion, it's game over, life out, and therefore you can't even speak contingently.
But what if he's not even saying, like, and again, I know this is because I'm just sort of trying to recount what people raised to me just so I can figure out how. But like, what if somebody's not even saying that's like a universal principle? What if he's just asking, do you, in this particular case, do you have a non-circular argument? Would I say no? Like, would you say no?
Well, the question of circularity can be used as a kind of a loaded question. And if you agree that in some sense, the revelation of God is speaks on its own authority, in some sense that's circular. But when you grant that it's circular reason, they go, that's a fallacy. And it's just, this is just like sophism. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Blue is just
Okay, so-
playing the devil's advocate.
Wait.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
I am not impugning him or anyone else in the room. I'm just talking about the sophists that I deal with on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Okay, so you
Okay,
would
so
say,
imagine God says to Adam, Adam, you may eat of all the trees in the Garden of Eden, but the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you may not eat, and in the day thereof you will surely die. Mm-hmm. And Adam says to him, and this is kind of tongue in cheek, well, how is that true? And God says, because I said so, because I'm the creator. Mm-hmm. And Adam goes, well, that's circular reasoning. You see how silly that is?
oh, okay, I get it. So basically, you're saying yes, it is a circular argument, but that's not a problem.
No, it's not a circular argument. There's a difference between circular reasoning and a circular argument. Okay.
Okay. So you're saying it's circular reasoning, but that's not an issue.
Yeah, you could have a chain of reasoning given our epistemic condition that is circular. But a chain of circular reasoning isn't precisely the same thing as a circular argument. A circular argument would have the conclusion in one of the premises, rather than the one of the premises has the conclusion in implication. So I could sit there and say, God would be the necessary precondition for there to be reason, truth, and intelligibility. We have reason and truth and intelligibility, therefore God. So sophists would say, well, that's circular reasoning. No, we're just saying we're reason to be true. God would be a necessary precondition. We have reason, or we could state it in the negative, saying without God, there could not be truth, reason, and intelligibility. And then premise 2, we have truth, reason, intelligibility, therefore God. It's not circular.
Okay. That makes sense. So yeah. So basically it's like, okay, so when somebody just says that, what I'm going to say basically is like, yeah, that's circular reasoning, but then so what? And, okay. I mean, there is one more thought I had about this, which is that, like, what if there's another person who basically said, okay, the necessary precondition is some non-theistic entity. And then if I were to ask them, okay, well, demonstrate that. They just say, let's say the person just says, it's self-authenticating, or I know it by virtue of that thing existing, or something like that. They give like their own form of circular reason. How would I know who's right?
Yeah, what do they call it? It's like Tang argument or something dumb like that. Yeah.
Well, Tang would be the transcendental argument for the non-existence of God that was, I think, delivered by Michael Martin, which he was eviscerated by, what was his name? He was a student of Greg Bahnsen. Can't remember what his name off the top of the head. That's what happens when you get old like me. But Tang has been systematically diced and sliced.
Dot, you're not old. You're not old, Dot.
Yeah.
I'm 65.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, you're old.
All your
I'm
best
just
Yeah.
curious
Like-
because you
Yeah.
know that troll in LARPer Jack Kingstrike was basically raising this to me, and I'm gonna be honest, I didn't have a response to him.
He's not only a troll, he's an internet stalker, and he's a pervert. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't say
Yeah.
that because he's an enemy or opponent. He is. If you listen to him at length, he's a
Admitted.
pervert.
But what would
Yeah.
you say to the Tang kind of argument?
Yeah, like this, like let's say they use their own like circular reasoning. Then
Okay,
how
I'm
would
trying to
I refute
to refresh my memory. You'll forgive me because I do a lot of studying on a regular basis, and sometimes I have trouble remembering some stuff in the past. I'm trying to remember the author. He's still alive, and he's a top student of Greg Bonson, who of course was a student of Van Til. And he wrote a solid refutation. He gave a solid, almost a definitive presentation of the transcendental argument for God. But then he responded to Michael Martin's Tang. What is his name? Oh, it'll come to me.
Was it
Yeah.
Michael Butler, man? Wait,
Michael Butler, thank you. There you go. Yeah, Michael Butler. If you want to read a blow by blow systematic dissection of Tang by Martin, read Michael Butler's critique. And by the way, Michael Martin chickened out debating Greg Bonson. They were scheduled to debate, and he backed out because he saw what happened to Gordon Stein.
But what would you say to the person who raises Tang?
Yeah, because I guess like there were,
Okay,
every time they try to,
refresh my memory. I mean, because there's so many different things I got to study all the time. Refresh my memory about the Michael Martin's Tang.
well, I mean, it's not. I'm more familiar with the version people use on this platform. I'm not really familiar with the academic one, but basically what they do, they sort of like mirror what you say. So they say like, X is the necessary precondition for knowledge, intelligibility, everything, except they say X is either some sort of like non-theistic foundation.
Yeah,
or something
they're
like
just
that.
doing a parody of the transcendental argument.
And then
And
when
so
I ask them
what they're
to
doing-
demonstrate their
okay.
premise, when I ask them to like demonstrate that, they just say, "Oh, it was caused. I have the belief infallibly by virtue of this non."
Yeah, well, they're
Okay,
well, they're lying.
Or if they say the impossibility of the contrary.
They're okay.
Yeah,
well,
'cause usually
well,
when
first
they
of
ask
all,
them to argue for it, they do
how
that.
is
Yeah,
okay,
they would need to demonstrate.
So how is God existing and being the ground of being and the precondition of intelligibility? How is that impossible?
Yeah, but when I ask them how is that impossible, they say it's impossible by virtue of the impossibility of the contrary.
Yeah, look, these are sophists
Sophistry.
who are. This is sophistry, just doing a atheistic parody of the Christian worldview. Okay, I've had a number of
How do
people
I
try
respond
this.
to them,
All right, let me give you an example. Okay, and you can actually see an example of this on YouTube. Cy10 Brugengate had a debate, I think, with Matt Dillabloviator, and then afterwards there was a Q&A by.
Isn't that
well,
true? That's totally true.
That's technically his name, you know.
Saitan probably slammed him.
I thought Cy did a pretty good job, but afterwards, Cy was in a Q&A with Greg Hovind with another guest. I can't remember what his name is, but he does atheist streams. And a guy stood up, and I'm trying to remember what was his name. I have it on my computer if anybody wants to see it later. And his name was he said his name was Tyler. Well, when I saw Tyler stand up, I recognized his voice because he had such a distinctive voice, and I used to have regular conversations and debate Tyler on other platforms, especially Pal Talk. And he stood up, and Tyler did exactly what you're describing to Cy10 Brugengate. That there's this thing out there, and it's not God, and it has made me to causally know that it is the ground of all being.
Yeah, I saw this video. Yeah.
Right, yeah, and he calls him. His name is Tyler. He's not a stupid guy. So after I saw the video, I ran into Tyler. I'm trying to remember where I ran into him. I think it was in my close to last days of going on Pal Talk, and I ran into Tyler, and I said, "So Tyler, good to see you again." Blah blah blah. I said, "So can you refresh my memory? What is your final authority, okay, in terms of reasoning?" And he said, "Well, the human mind." And I said, "Are you solid on that?" And he goes, "Yeah." See, he had no idea that I saw him in the video. Okay? So I was setting him up in the way that I didn't let him know. You know,
Devious.
well,
In a good way. In a good way.
yeah. And so I gave him enough rope to hang himself. And so he insisted that human reason and human reason alone is the final authority as to what is and cannot be.
That's crazy.
And I said, so there's nothing ontologically beyond human beings being the final court of appeal as to what is and cannot be. And he said, no. And then I hit him and said,
Wait, he
by
said
the
that
way,
without laughing?
well, we weren't taught, we were texting. Okay.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm repeating it as though we were conversing.
Okay.
So I said him in the text, and I said, "So, Tyler, were you at that conference with Seitan Pruckengate when he debated Matt Dillahunty? And did you stand up and ask a question?" And he kind of sheepishly in the text says, "Yeah, why are you bringing this up?" And I said, "Do you remember what you said? That there's this thing out there that's not God, and it has causally made me to know, and it is the ground of all being." And when he brought that up to Seitan Pruckengate said, "Folks, this is the deception that they have to resort to. It's just a parody. They're not sincere at all."
It's like
Now,
mental gymnastics.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I said, by the way, you've just been busted. And he goes, "Yeah, you caught me." I said, "You were lying through your teeth to Seitan Pruckengate on the public, in front of the public cameras." He goes, "Yeah."
I hate
Okay,
when people
Yeah.
lie through their teeth.
okay, so
And I think it's
let's
clear.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just think it's, yeah, they're liars and everything, but I guess I'm just kind of wondering, like, let's just say one of them, for whatever reason, was telling the truth. I don't know. I know they all lie, but like,
Excellent. Okay,
what they
right.
think.
I just want to
What they
make
think
sure
is
that
the
I have
truth.
the best one. So, like,
Right.
because if somebody were to ask me, how do I do, what's the argument for my foundation or whatever, I would just say, oh, the impossibility of the contrary. I would use that kind of circular reasoning, and they're just doing the same thing, but for their conclusion. So then, how would I? Because they're just doing the same thing as me. So then, what would I do at that point?
Well, they're
Okay, so
claiming to do
that's
the
a great
same thing.
see, I can tell you guys are on the ball because that was the next point I was going to go to. Let's set aside the liars, which are 99.9%, and let's deal with that tiny little percentage of somebody who is, quote, sincere. Okay, so they're advocating a single causal first principle, a ground of being that is not attribute set is not that of the triune God. So that entity, that ground of being, would be missing one or more of the essential properties of the God of the Bible. Okay, and that would go for any proposed entity as long as it's characteristically not the triune God. Okay, so do we agree on that?
We do,
Yeah.
but they wouldn't.
Yeah, that makes
No.
sense.
Well,
Yeah.
then if it had the same attribute set
Then it would be the same
as the
guy with
God of the
just a
Bible,
different
then we
name.
would be talking
Yeah.
about the God of the Bible.
Yeah, you're
So
just
I've
slapping a
actually
different
sort of
name on it.
Okay, yeah,
I've got one of
yeah.
the trolls on this before, so I asked them, okay, but it wouldn't have the attributes of my view, and I say, how could you ground it without those attributes? And then they tell me the impossibility of the contrary. So what would I do at that point?
That's just a rhetorical ploy. So I would ask him, what property is this entity missing that the Christian God possesses? Okay.
Like kind of like
Yeah.
a name the trait style thing.
Well, yeah, it doesn't. And by the way, it wouldn't matter what property or attribute they invoke. And then my next question would be, so your God is not characteristically perfect? So you're telling me that the ground of
Yeah,
all
this
being is imperfect.
this is kind of what we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier,
So
right?
what if
Before
they say,
Darth got here, when
yeah,
someone said, "Well, why can't God be a quaternity, right, or whatever that's called, like,
Okay.
instead of
So
a trinity?" Right?
that's a great question.
Yeah. And
Okay,
but
so
and
see, what's the
I
answer to
feel
that?
so like
You would think that instead
out
of a
of
trinity,
curiosity,
God would be.
unnecessary.
You would think that
out of
instead of a
curiosity,
trinity, God would be an infinity. You know?
just about
Okay.
just about the imperfect thing, because like, so I
All
say,
right, but
like,
we'll
how
get
could
back to the quadrinity after we
yeah.
wrap
Okay,
up
yeah,
the
let's put a pin
okay.
in it.
It's just like, because like I would ask, how can an imperfect foundation ground logic and intelligibility? And they'll just say, by virtue of the impossibility of the contrary.
That's just a rhetorical ploy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what would I say to them at that point? Because
No.
I'm saying the same thing.
Well, you see, the impossibility of the contrary cannot be stated unless you establish first a positive propositional representation of the ground of being.
Wait, Darth,
That's a good
couldn't you
point.
just accuse them of saying the same thing over again? Couldn't you just say, like, if you're saying the contrary is impossible, that's just to restate the claim I'm asking you for an argument for?
That is a critique that has been given before, but no, it's not. So
Okay, you can't do that.
the impossibility of the contrary is, how shall I express this?
Because wouldn't it be
We're-
something
we're
like
not-
you saying, like, A because everything that's not A isn't, or something like that?
It is
Like,
impossible.
It's
Yeah.
understandable how somebody can arrive at that critique, but it's incorrect, okay? Because the way they're using it in the form of an appeal to ignorance fallacy, right? So I'm trying to think of how to express this.
Actually, one thing they say is that in modal logic, like to say that something is necessary is just equivalent to saying that its contrary is impossible in modal logic. That's one thing they say. What would you say to that?
Well, we're not talking about simply modal logic. We're talking about ontology. Okay?
Oh, this would be beyond logic. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay. So when we say, where did this impossibility of the contrary come from? Okay. At least in modern times, it came from Van Til in the early part to the mid part of the 20th century. So when Van Til says Christianity is true due to the impossibility of the contrary, Van Til was attempting to distill the transcendental argument for Christian theism down to its briefest representation, which does not always convey the robustness of it. So when he says that Christianity is true due to the impossibility of the contrary, he's saying Christianity that refers to the fact of its own positive propositional representation.
Yeah. So I mean,
This is why-
followed by a reductio ad absurdum. So this is the beauty of reductio ad absurdum. The transcendental argument for Christian theism is a classic example of a reductio ad absurdum. In a reductio ad absurdum, you have to make a positive case first.
right. So
Then the impossibility of the negation comes in. They're not making a positive case.
yeah.
They're just saying Christianity is impossible.
Yeah, they're asking
Yeah,
to prove that the impossibility is
Right, exactly.
So
that the
I
possibility
can
is
explain.
impossible.
I can explain to you ontologically and epistemically why a non-Christian worldview is impossible. Because even if you attempt to posit a single ground of all being that is characteristically not the Christian God, then what you're saying is you have grounds for reason, truth, intelligibility, and rational discussion of actuality from an imperfect source.
What if they're saying here's a question. Like, what if they're saying that they are making a positive claim with like this parity type of thing, right? They're saying their reason for having this.
Okay, and all I have to do is start asking them questions about the attribute set and how that attribute set compares to the Christian God. And they're always going to shoot themselves in the foot.
Wait, what
because
if they say, out of curiosity, just what if they said, for example, they don't know exactly, or they just know that they're distinct from your attributes, and they know that by virtue of a non-intentional
Okay,
causal
so
revelation.
so they're talking about a single causal first principle. Is it
Right.
personal or impersonal?
Impersonal.
Usually they say it's impersonal.
Yeah.
Because being a personal being is a great making property. So what I like to fall back on is a kind of Anselm reasoning. God is the greatest conceivable being of which none greater can be conceived. So if they're going to tell me that they have a competitor to the Christian God, right?
it would kind
I
of be
want
like
to
a
know-
step right up, step
Right.
right up.
And I
next
could just start going through the attribute set of the God of the Bible in my head quietly and just say, okay, is your God eternal?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
I shouldn't say God. I should say is your
First
ultimate
causal principle or
is
whatever. Yeah.
yeah. I'll just use ultimate for brevity. Is
Yeah.
your
Okay.
ultimate personal?
They'll
All right,
say
and
no.
right then and there, 99.9% of them are deer in the headlights.
Mm.
Is it
Yeah.
I
So
do
personal?
if
got
they say
I do got a
well, if they
question.
say if they say that it's impersonal, and then of course by virtue of being impersonal, that would be denying a great making property. So if they
Yes,
say
and it
that,
would,
and then
and how would you so how is it that an impersonal entity is revelatory?
but when I ask them, they say by virtue of the impossibility of the contrary, and I'm saying once they make that move,
That's rhetoric. That's
That's got to be
well,
so
but I
frustrating.
guess
How can you
the
say
problem.
something as stupid as
no,
that?
you okay. So what he's saying is that in the hypothetical case that there is an ultimate and it is personal, omniscient, omnipotent, etc. It's the attribute set. And how is that impossible?
Yeah, but like that's the problem I have with this. And by the way, I think I'm on board so far. But the problem I have with this is like I say the same thing, and then when they ask me how it's impossible, I just have to appeal to my own paradigm again. And what if they just do that and it just keeps going?
How is what impossible?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So for example, like when they will ask me, well, how is it the case that um these sort of like transcendentals are couldn't exist without theism or something like that?
Okay, so they're going to have a double problem. They're going to have an ontological and an epistemological problem simultaneously.
Hmm.
So if they tell you what the certain attributes are of their ultimate are, they're going to have an adequate epistemology so that they can know these ontological characteristics. But the
They'll appeal to
ontology, yeah,
usually
go
they'll
ahead.
appeal to like non-intentional revelation, like causal revelation is what they'll appeal to.
No, either the entity in question, the ultimate, is personal or not personal. So then
Right.
what they're saying is that an impersonal thing is revelatory or communicative.
Oh,
That's
so
absurd.
okay, I actually know what they say
That's
about
absurd.
this,
That's patently
and
absurd. How
I
do you
agree
have
with you.
how do you have a non-personal? How does something
Agree
that
with
is
you.
non-personal, a non-agent, engage in communication?
Yeah, I know what they say. So actually, what they'll do is they'll actually try to resist calling it communication. They'll say it's causation. So they'll say it
Yeah,
causes you to form a
yeah.
certain
Well,
belief and by
right,
infallible
they're
mechanisms.
just okay. And so number one, it's not personal. Okay,
Hmm.
um, is and it's impersonal. So
Exactly.
so then it's not omniscient because omniscient
Yeah,
is a
they'll say it
faculty
doesn't
of
have
agent.
knowledge. Yeah, because they'll
Oh,
say.
okay.
So here's what they'll say.
Then whatever this thing does, it doesn't know if the actualization communicates its target.
Yeah, so let me tell you what they'll tell me. They say it's like an impersonal but an infallible mechanism, causal mechanism.
They're
And then
see
whenever,
the problem is they're just making up this crap as they go along.
but I know,
Yeah,
but
they're just
They
making
don't
I
shit
know
actually
up.
they're
believe
Yeah, but
this.
it's still difficult.
I know they're
If they
lying,
believe
but
it,
like
they're insane.
I know
Hmm.
they're all liars and their hearts are darkened by sin. I know all this is true, but like whenever the point is that like I don't understand how to move forward because they're appealing to their own circular
Yeah,
reasoning, and so
and
am I, and I
optically
just
it
don't
doesn't
You
know.
have
work
to
there.
understand. You have to understand. You're dealing with individuals that have confirmation bias. Now,
Yeah, but how would
every
I respond to that? Like, what would I say if they just
okay,
say,
what
"Yeah,
I
this
would
was
say is
revealed to
then you
me"?
go down. Look, say, is your source perfect or imperfect?
Okay, let's just try to do. They'll say like imperfect.
Okay, then an imperfect source cannot necessarily uh,
Well,
reveal itself.
that
Okay, when they
they'll
say,
even
Something
say stuff like, "Well, what is
well,
perfect?" Right?
no, well, when they say that,
Yeah.
perfect means to, as Anselm said, that God or the ultimacy of reality is the greatest conceivable being of which none greater can conceive and has great making properties. Now,
well,
perfection is a catch-all term to encompass this attribute set. Okay, so if it's imperfect in one area, well, then how do you know it's not imperfect in other areas?
So you're saying if you don't know one, if you don't know like a certain aspect about God or an ultimately powerful being, you might not know everything else might be undermined.
Well,
Well, I
yeah.
don't know if
So
he's.
it's like this. When people challenge the authority and the self-attestation of the Christian scriptures as being the revelation of God,
Mhm.
they'll say, "Well, look, the Bible was written by fallible men, and so therefore, anything that is produced by fallible men cannot exemplify speaking authoritative." I said, "Thank you for contradicting yourself." And they're like, "What?" I said, "Yeah,
Because he just said
you are you a fallible man? Therefore, you cannot speak with authority.
I think they call that
Therefore,
hoisted on their own petard.
I
Yeah.
was kind of
just
curious though,
It's a
slightly, yeah.
because
humorous contradiction.
what they say in response, so basically what they'll say is that okay, when we try to point out the obvious logic that if something is imperfect, then it can't sort of infallibly cause beliefs in individuals. What they'll say is that is false by virtue of the impossibility of the contrary. And then when I ask them, can you show me that the contrary is impossible? They just say yes by virtue of the impossibility of the contrary, and it keeps going on and on
Okay.
and
Yeah,
on.
So
And
then
there's
right
no
then
end to
and
it.
there, you know
yeah.
that they're lying
You're dealing
sophists.
with a scumbag.
I
You're
know
just
they're
you're
lying,
just
but I
dealing with
thought we
a
were
look,
supposing.
Like Tupac.
look. I'm very experienced in debating and defending the transcendental argument for God.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm still in a
Yeah.
learning process. I've read most of Van Til's works. I've had extensive practice at this. Even at my ability level, dealing with those kinds of people are difficult because they are fundamentally deceitful.
I
And
agree,
Mm.
but
so,
I thought we were supposing. I thought we were just like, let's just say one of them was honest. I know that's like never going to happen, right? But like, let's just say one of
okay.
them was.
Well,
Then what would I say?
then what we do is we get them talking, and they always end up committing metaphysical harikari.
But what
Okay,
if they just keep appealing to the what if they what if they just keep on appealing to the impossibility of their contrary from their own paradigm? Then
okay. So so then we have to unpack that rhetoric. You see, when Van Til said the impossibility of the contrary, this was not. First of all, Van Til had a PhD in philosophy from Princeton
Yeah.
University.
Mm.
He was brilliant in terms of philosophy and theology. Now there are certain aspects of theology I don't agree with Van Til. Okay,
Yeah,
but I
but you were
nonetheless
saying it
can
just distills the transcendental argument
yeah,
into something that
and
people can
so
digest.
yeah. So we have here this brilliant philosopher and theologian who his specialization is in apologetics. He's not going to invoke a slogan or a cliche that is not in fact substantive. They are taking that extreme truncated representation of the transcendental argument for God, and they're just using it as a rhetorical flourish. When they say the contrary is impossible, what they're then saying is in a world where God exists as the sum of all perfections, it would be impossible for an omnipotent, omniscient, perfect God to reveal himself. That's insane.
Mm.
yeah, but when we say but okay, so when we say it's insane, but if I were to ask them to demonstrate it, so for example,
They
what I'm
couldn't.
going to do, like at some point, like we just talked about, we're going to have to appeal to circular reasoning from our own paradigm, and they're going to keep appealing, like say to just keep appealing to circular reasoning from their own paradigm, no matter what they say.
But
The
they
contrary
can't
is
look.
impossible. They say you're
Listen,
presupposing my worldview. Like what would
they
you do at that
okay.
point?
I keep on explaining to you. You keep on asking the same question over and again. What they're
Oh my
just
bad.
simply doing is they are not sincerely giving you content. They're just continuing to resort to rhetorical
Yeah,
flourishes.
as
I
opposed
thought
to
we were
like you,
supposing.
who
I
When
thought
would
we were
give
supposing they
more
were sincere.
content.
I thought we're
no,
saying
what I'm
hypothetically
saying to
they
you
were
is you're going to
sincere.
reach a point where that's all they've got. You see, if somebody asked me, how is if you were to ask Van Til, the philosopher, how is the impossibility? How is the contrary impossible? He would
Mm-hmm.
explain to you with specificity how, in a world without a single causal absolute, who is the sum of all perfections, okay, being imperfect cannot guarantee any outcome because it's not perfect. So what
But
they're
what if they
saying
say
is,
everything in that argument is wrong by virtue of it violating their worldview, which is necessary?
okay, well they would have to demonstrate beyond rhetoric that their model of reality is necessary, which they cannot do.
Wait, but
This
but
is
what if they say that
all right. Let me
out of
just finish.
curiosity? Okay.
So when what they're saying is that which is characteristically the sum of all perfections, it would be impossible for that attribute set to actualize the world and facilitate us the ability to know things, and especially itself. That is beyond. Anyone who says that is either a liar, which 99.99 are, or they're insane. To say that that which would be perfect in all respects could not do something that isn't a violation of their attribute set is insane. If they're perfect, then they are by definition omnipotent, which doesn't mean they can do anything, because even a perfect being cannot do something, but they cannot do things that are violations of its perfections.
Like the
Yeah,
universe.
but then
Hey, Darth,
then
could I
they'll
ask
come.
you a
Real quick. Then they'll come with the response, which is that all of that is wrong because it is in conflict with their necessary paradigm. And then, so would you say it's like
okay, so
basically
just think
inconsistent at
about
that point?
this. So what they're doing is what they're saying is, and if I'm not answering your question, let me know. What they're doing is they're saying ultimate perfection is impossible to exist and facilitate this world, whereas ultimate imperfection does facilitate this world. Do you know what a performative contradiction is?
Like I am not
Yeah,
speaking
but
English.
then and I sometimes I try to say that, but then they
They're
just say
committing
that.
a performative contradiction.
But what if they say I'm committing a performative contradiction by denying their worldview? Then what would you?
I think this is where you're
But you
licensed
see,
to
they
just
haven't
start yelling at them.
they have
No, no. Or
yeah
you would just
they haven't
block them or
established
something if they said that.
they haven't established that ultimate imperfection exists and that ultimate imperfection can facilitate anything. They haven't
But what if they
There's
say
also
that?
there's also the
What if they?
BB route where you can
Well,
just hit
hold
the
on.
block button.
What if they say that? What if they say that when I claim that they haven't established it? What if they say that's a performative contradiction? That's presupposing their own
Yeah, but
worldview,
Blue,
which
if
is
they say
necessary.
that, I would just drop them.
look,
I would just drop them if they said that.
I would say I would first ask him this question. In one or two sentences and no more, what is a performative contradiction? And 99% of them are going to be deer in the headlights. They couldn't answer the question.
But what if
By
they
the way,
did
if you
know
want to
what it
read
was?
more on that, okay,
What if they did?
then I would say, okay, how is my recapitulating the revelation of God a self contradiction, or how
What if
does
they
the
say it?
background information? Let me just finish.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
So for everyone else in the room, a performative. And by the way, if you want to read about performative contradictions, there's a wonderful scholarly paper by Adrian Bardome, I believe his name is, and I think the paper is entitled "Transcendental Performative Contradictions." Fantastic paper. The performative contradiction is that it's a proposition or a statement, and the proposition can be an aggregate of propositions, but for brevity, we'll just say it's a single proposition. So it's a proposition or a statement that is in some way semantically self-referential, that contradicts or undermines itself, or
Like I'm not
the
speaking
background
English, right?
I'm sorry,
Like
what?
like I'm not speaking English.
Yeah, that would be a performative contradiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't
You guys
get what
see
you
that
were
because
doing,
I
but now I get
said
it.
in English that I wasn't speaking
Yeah.
English.
that
Yeah,
was
I'm
that
not
was the
get it.
speaking
point.
I
English
get
to
it
you right
now.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Okay,
That's
but
good.
the performative
Yeah, I just made that
contradiction
up.
has an
Yeah,
extension.
that was really deep, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so, but I'm not done with, but a performative contradiction also includes that the background framework or metaphysical context undermines, conflicts, or contradicts the grounding of the proposition.
Right.
And so when they say we're committing a performative contradiction, then we have to explain how ultimate perfection as the ground of all being would undermine or contradict the propositions that we're making.
Yeah. So, like, what if they were to say, because I've heard this before. I've heard almost every crazy thing. I've heard it before. Basically, they'll say like, well, in order to even deny or to question the authenticity of my worldview, since my worldview is necessary for everything, you must presuppose it. And so for that reason, it is a performative contradiction. You're denying what you must
Okay,
necessarily presuppose.
So imperfection, fundamental imperfection is behind everything.
Yeah, they'll say yes. By virtue of the impossibility
Well,
of the contrary.
couldn't they also say that what you think is imperfect
okay. Well,
is perfect?
Okay. So in imperfection,
We can reschedule.
it means it's not absolute. Van Til at times would refer to God by different nomenclature, and one of them is that
What if they
God is
deny
the
that?
absolute.
What if they say something can be absolute and imperfect? And then if you ask them, how do you know? They say by virtue of the impossibility of the contrary.
It depends on how we're using the word absolute. In a Van Tilian way, referring to God as the absolute is a single word that he's using in his vocabulary to view that God cannot fail to be, he cannot fail to be persist, he has no imperfections. Okay. Now,
Wait, Darth, it's your victim. Your victim's on the screen.
I'm not looking at my phone right now.
Oh, sorry. Okay, fine. It's
Graham Hoppy.
It's Mal Bloviate.
Yeah, it's the guy you cooked, you know.
Okay. By the way, in whatever criticism I make in my interaction with Oppie, it does not mean that I don't recognize that he's a brilliant philosopher. You know.
But you did cook him though.
I think I asked him. Him answering me. I see books on my shelf was a. I don't want to be mean here. I mean, it was a colossal fail. He didn't address the question.
Yeah.
Okay, nor could he answer the question.
Yeah. So what if they say something imperfect could be absolute, and then of course they're going to appeal to.
Okay. So if your source is if your source is imperfect, then how do you know your reasoning is correct?
But they're just going to appeal to their own paradigm and say by virtue of the impossibility.
No. Look, let me give you an analogy. Okay. Suppose you go to the doctor, okay, and you think you have some ailment that you're suffering from, and the doctor says, "Oh, well, we have this new high-tech machine. It just came out last year, and it can diagnose whether you are suffering from this illness or not." Doctor draws the blood. He squirts the blood into the machine, and out it spits out the diagnosis like you would get a receipt, going to the grocery store. And he says, "Oh, here it says that it's negative for your disease," and you're like, "Oh, I'm relieved." And then he says, "Oh, but you know what? This machine, has a 12% error rate. Does that mean you're free of the disease?"
Yeah, you could say run it 20 more times.
What they'll say though is that something can be imperfect but infallible. And then if I ask them
that's a contradiction in terms.
But they'll say that is not a contradiction by virtue of
course
their
it is.
paradigm necessarily. And then what
then you need to stop talking with these people.
How come you know so much about what they would say?
So you're saying
how come you know so much about what they would say, Blue?
Yeah, I've talked to all of them. I've talked to all of them.
So Blue, at first I thought you were being kind of pedantic.
No, what he's saying is he is repeating what these.
His voice sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah.
Well,
it does get asked a lot, and it's kind of annoying.
So would your advice be like at that point you just stop talking to them because
at that point you have to say this is what you will resort to in your rebellion against God's revelation, that you're just resorting to just making up this stuff as you go along, and then they're going to continue to solve this and saying, well, that's what my paradigm says. My paradigm says you're making. I mean, at this point you have to stop with these 14-year-olds trapped in 24-year-old bodies.
Yeah.
Okay, so at that point, what you have to say is like at that point, okay,
and let me ask you this. Why is it that academic skeptics never resort to this ever? Why? Because they don't want to look like colossal assholes or fools. Okay.
Okay, yeah, that
And
makes
they
sense.
know.
No, that's
Yeah,
good
that
advice.
makes sense. That makes sense.
So basically,
Yeah.
whenever you get to that point where it's just like they're doing this kind of like their own
Yeah,
They
say
know
parenting,
that
good.
they're
You're
just
just
being
it's not
confirming.
colossal
Then what you want to
assholes.
say is if you're coming from the Christian worldview,
Mhm.
then you simply point is that you're dealing with somebody who is committed to being deceptive, and you say, I want to thank you for displaying exactly what God revealed in the Bible, that you are suppressing the truth and unrighteousness.
Let's go.
Okay.
okay. That makes it. I did have one more question, which is what if there was like a god who had some additional essential property to your conception? How would you refute that view?
Like
Okay.
aesthetic purpose or something.
That's a good question. What would that attribute be?
Just
Yes.
that they don't. It's some unknown additional attribute
Then
that.
then you say, thank you for wasting my time.
Mm. Wait,
No,
Well,
but
isn't
there's
there
what,
like
what
an
would
no,
they
no.
Wait a
But
minute,
say?
aesthetic
hold on a second.
that they'll invoke sometimes?
If it's unknown, then it is irrational for them to posit it.
What if
but what
the
if
dark?
they?
What
What
if
if
they? Wait
they?
1 second.
Wait,
What if they start like stinging at you? How does it feel to lose?
no, dude. What?
I would just say
I
thank you
ran into
for
that guy.
confirming the scripture about
Mm.
how you are committed to suppressing the truth and unrighteousness. That you will say anything, no matter how ridiculous, rather than
Well,
to surrender to the God that you know.
Mm.
I'm just curious though. Like, so what if Because and again, this
All right,
actually
all right.
has been done before.
All right. Let me explain this to you. You have to understand a little bit
Yeah.
about biblical anthropology at this point. Okay,
Yep.
so
Okay.
these opponents, they're committed to the fact that they are autonomous, independent thinkers and players on this planet. The
Mm.
only alternative is that God is the autonomous one, and we operate under his auspices, under his plan. And if we're in a world where we operate where God is the creator and we are his creatures, then we cannot be autonomous, independent operators.
Right.
So it's either we're creaturely or we're not creaturely.
Mm-hmm.
So they are committed, whether they're going to admit it or not. And it's not very difficult to get them to acknowledge that they are operating in principle whenever they speak, that they are autonomous, independent operators.
Yeah.
Now,
I mean, what if
the
they? Oh,
reason
sorry.
why they refuse to accept a well-presented Trendenal argument for God is because then they would necessarily be required to repent
Mm-hmm.
of their false belief that they are independent, autonomous thinkers in order to recognize that their capacity to reason and think is a gift of God. Okay.
Amen.
And so
Yeah.
this is why, so because they're committed, say, is it your
Oh.
position that your reasoning your cognitive apparatus is a gift of God? Okay, they're going to say,
Yeah.
no, I don't accept that. Say, okay, so your cognitive apparatus operates autonomously and independently from God being the source of perfection. They're going to have to
Mm.
say yes. Okay, say good.
Mm-hmm.
So you are committed to your own personal autonomy, but
Amen.
there's no way to justify that from even if they resort to an appeal to ultimate imperfection. So I'm an autonomous being. Okay. So in that realm, what we now have is either we have determinism or indeterminism.
One or
If
the
they're going
other.
to go that sophist route, they're actually appealing to ultimate determinism. So
Mm.
if you have ultimate determinism or indeterminism, that destroys
Knowledge.
Done.
cognitive reasoning.
Done.
But I guess I'm kind of wondering, like, how do you know all of God's essential properties, I guess? Or how do you know that you're right about all of the essential properties
Well,
as opposed to there being someone?
first of all, we cannot know exhaustively God, but we can know him analogically to the extent that he chooses to reveal us to. Okay,
So
and when
how
we
would you
go
rule
through
out
when we
there's
well,
some additional essential property that you aren't aware of that you're mistaken about?
Oh, I think I've
well,
heard someone make this argument before.
Yeah, that's the
so
argument I
Yeah.
was
so
gonna run.
when you come to perfect being theology, even among experts in the field, and that's in the next volume I'm reading. I can't remember the author's name. It's a Japanese name, but it's a book on perfect being theology. So even among experts in perfect being theology, sometimes there may be a disagreement as to the entire set, from our perspective, of the set of great making properties.
Right.
But the basic set is not in question. Okay, so people might dispute: is God temporal? Is God atemporal? But when it comes to He's eternal,
Right.
He's omniscient, omnipotent,
Everything.
right?
Yeah, but like,
Omnibenevolent.
but how?
Yeah.
But like, suppose like, okay, there's the essential attributes according to the Christian view, and then somebody has another view where like there's like one other essential property, and I guess I'm wondering how would you rule out that actually there isn't that other
Well,
essential property?
okay, that's a good
Just
question.
a second, Darth. I don't know about you, but I'm starting to suspect that Blue is not playing the devil's advocate. It seems more like he is the devil.
Well,
I think he's been hurt.
At least he's
hurt.
being cordial. Okay.
I mean, it's like saying, look, I know my neighbor is 6 feet tall.
Unless this is Tupac, trying to hide his voice,
No.
Okay, so what we fall back on
Wait, but Darth, I have a
is
question.
that God has revealed to us
Darth,
all of his essential properties that he intends for us to know this side of the grave.
what's your?
And we don't have
thoughts?
to worry. We don't have to worry about what we don't know yet about God, because what he has made us to know through his natural and special revelation is sufficient for us to communicate the truth of the Christian worldview,
But
with the
Darth,
impossibility of its rational negation.
What are your views on the whole skeptical theism entails some kind of broader skepticism?
Yeah, that's a kind of position that Angstreich used to pull by saying if God could have morally sufficient reasons for moral or natural evils, then he could have morally sufficient reasons to lie to you. But this is not arguing against the God of the Bible, because the God of the Bible has already communicated that he cannot lie.
Right.
He
but
cannot.
I think
In
it's
fact,
one of-
when you
so,
actually
like,
look in the Greek,
be deceived.
the idea would like in an argument would be like, humans aren't in a position to judge what reasons God may have for permitting states of affairs. Therefore, for any state of affairs, it's possible that God has a morally sufficient reason for permitting the state of affairs, even if we can't discern that reason. And then the next step would just be a person believing proposition P is a state of affairs, right?
yeah. Well, the issue is very simple. God has revealed to us that he is perfect. Therefore, God cannot himself actively exude falsehood.
Yeah, but what if one of the reasons
and if you adopt, well, listen carefully.
Uh-huh.
And this is a point that I learned from Van Til, which was very insightful. It's simple, but I overlooked it until I read it. Everything that God creates, that he purposes, that comes into contact with our consciousness, including our own self-reflection of our own self-consciousness, is a revelation of God. So if you're going to be operating in principle that God is perfect, or he's not perfect. If God is imperfect, then the revelation would fall under the category of imperfection as well.
Yeah, but
therefore,
if you agree with those,
let me just finish.
Things.
If you're not operating under the auspices of the ground of being that's perfect, then your reasoning faculties means that you have no guarantee that your reasoning is correct and intelligible. Only
Can God
under the
send deceiving spirits?
Well, and that's a good question. That is a temporal judgment that God has implemented, that other beings are deceiving, and God is withdrawing his protective grace and allowing the vacuum that is there to be filled by evil agents as a punishment to those who have rejected God's revelation. So in 2 Thessalonians, in the end times, with the rise of the Antichrist who will be possessed by Satan, it says God will send a damning delusion to those who accept the lie, who receive not a love of the truth. So the damning delusion, God withholds some of his common grace, which keeps back Satan from, it prevents in even greater magnitude of satanic deception, God withholds his common grace. Satan fills that vacuum with the damning delusion. But the delusion that God, when it says God sends, the question is, by what means does God send the delusion?
Mm-hmm.
Does God himself actively deceive, or is simply God stepping back from his common grace?
Wow.
Right. And so it's important to understand the sequence there, because it says
but-
damning delusion upon those who believe the lie, who receive not love and truth. The lie is a very specific term in the Bible. It's referred to in Romans 1. Paul talks about believing the lie. And the lie is believing any model of reality wherein we are not under the auspices of a perfect God who reveals himself in creation, and he reveals himself sovereignly to various individuals, prophets throughout human history.
But Darth,
So
like the thing I was asking you.
Let me just finish, okay, with this first, because it's important to understand.
We're getting a little tangential. I just want to.
Okay, I'll wrap it up in 30 seconds.
You got it.
So when the order is reversed here, okay, so when somebody does not receive a love of the truth, that is, they're rejecting certain aspects of God's natural and special revelation. As a consequence of not receiving the love of the truth, which is God's revelation, they adopt the lie. Once they adopt the lie, they are now open territory for the damning delusion. Okay, so God is not guilty of deception there.
Okay. But of these three considerations, right, that I do you deny any of these three things? Like the first one is, according to skeptical theism, humans aren't in a position to judge what reasons God has for allowing states of affairs, right? That's
like
the
why
first one.
God judges. You mean?
The second one is
when do you want me to answer one by one, or wait till you get done with all
one by
three?
one. You can go ahead.
Okay, we're not in a position to doubt or negate what God has revealed.
Okay, and then the second one, for any state of affairs, let's just say S, it's possible that God has a morally sufficient reason for permitting that state of affairs, even if we can't discern that reason.
This would be like the stepping away.
I would simply say is it's clear from the biblical revelation that God is going to allow a certain measure of moral and natural evils according to his plan in order to bring about the best of all possible worlds.
Right, and even if we can't discern the reason for that plan, it's still his plan.
Yeah, it's his plan, and his plan is all wise, and we are not in a position to negate it.
That's great. And then the third one is just a person believing proposition P is a state of affairs. You don't disagree with that, right?
Well, yeah. What's the point of what's the point of the last point?
Well, just if you agree with those things, then this is the conclusion. Therefore, for any proposition P, it's possible that God has a morally sufficient reason for permitting a person to believe P, even if it is false.
Yeah, God has morally sufficient reason.
God would never do that.
Yeah, but I'm just saying whether God would do it or not.
He would.
God has morally sufficient reasons.
The host said something confused. Whether God would do it or not isn't kind of. I'm saying that based on what we're committed to here, it logically follows.
No, God has morally sufficient reasons to allow certain people to believe things that are false, and when He allows that, these are temporal judgments. So God has a set of propositions within the Christian worldview framework that he purposes and doesn't fail to bring to pass that we come to know.
Right.
Whether we retain that or not, or affix a certain amount of confidence in that, is besides the point. So what God intends for us to know, we will know. That does not mean, let me just finish.
Okay.
That does not mean that what God intends for us to let me just rephrase this. So what God intends for us to know, we will know. But that does not preclude that once a person is the recipient of God's revelation, that God would prohibit them from believing that which is false. God allows people to believe that which is false as a temporal judgment by virtue of rejecting. So let's go back to the Garden of Eden as a paradigm.
Right.
God gives his revelation. I'm God.
Indeed.
I've made you here. I've made all these trees here for you. He gives additional revelation. Do not eat the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and the day thereof you shall surely die. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
When Adam and Eve decided to rebel, although Paul impugns Eve as the one who was deceived,
Right.
Adam was deceived in an extent, but not to the same extent that Eve was by the serpent.
Right.
So Adam, upon rejecting the love of the truth, which was the revelation of God, he succumbed to a false belief
Yeah.
that when he eats it, he will know good and evil and be like God.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And so Adam himself became deceived after rejecting what God had already made him to know.
Right. And that's just kind of okay. So we're in agreement so far. Okay, so then I mean, the argument goes on to say, as long as we've established like that conclusion, okay, then here's the first one, and we can do this one by one as well. If for any proposition P, God.
Well, that's fair. You guys are making fun of Graham Oppie. I mean, doing that distortion of his head.
No, it's just to house his big
No,
brain.
no, I'm not distorting anything.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not what it's not. Come on.
Well, I think it's just the camera angle. But
no. Okay.
The next one, Darth, is if for any proposition P, God may have a morally sufficient reason for permitting someone to believe P, then our inability to identify such a reason provides.
He just dropped out.
I think somebody was trying to fix the background noise, but it's not me. I'll just read it again. If for any proposition P, God may have morally sufficient reason for permitting someone to believe P, then our inability to identify such a reason provides no evidence that God would not permit us to hold false beliefs.
Yeah, this is just reasoning outside of the Christian framework. So you should formulate it that God has sufficient reasons to temporarily judge people who reject his revelation to believe what they ought not.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay?
The permissive will versus like him allowing.
Right. And so what you need to understand, and this isn't a criticism of you, the Philbros out there, the skeptics and the atheist Philbros out there, 99.999% of them are not acquainted with theology.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
They may have read a little bit, but they're not acquainted. Due to their ignorance of more sophisticated explications of biblical theology, they make numerous elementary mistakes in their reasoning about God. So, for example, here's one that the higher level Philbros tried on me. Well, is there going to be sin in heaven after Judgment Day? And the answer is no.
Yeah, but
say, well, then if there's not.
Darth,
Let me
do
just
you consider
finish.
Tupac to be a Philbro?
No, he's a troll.
He's a troll.
He's not very smart because if he would, he wouldn't be resorting to all of these adolescent antics.
Right. It's like if you're so smart, go be a doctor or something.
No,
like,
if you're really that smart, you can discursively walk through somebody and show how their reasoning is false instead of constantly pathologically lying and resorting to contrary tactics where you're just a contrarian. Okay, somebody who does that behavior consistently, they're demonstrating their own lack of confidence in their intellectual capabilities.
Okay, well then, Darth, by your reformulation, then this next conclusion would just follow then. So, therefore, our inability to identify a divine reason for our holding false beliefs provides no evidence that God would not permit us to hold false beliefs, right? Because
you're not looking at it from the Christian perspective. You're forming the syllogism, and it's not an accurate representation of the Christian model. So the Philbro,
what's inaccurate about it, really quick?
Because you're not representing it from the Christian framework.
Well, I'm saying, what about the Christian framework? And am I getting wrong?
Because God has His own perfect, morally sufficient reasons to temporally judge people, and anything that somebody is deceived about is a temporal judgment.
I know that we hash that out in premise 3 and 4.
Okay.
You agreed that You agreed that a person believing Proposition P is a state of affairs. You said that that's trivially true.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Wrap this up here. Okay.
Okay. Well, then there would only be 3 more premises and 1 conclusion. Okay. So
well, if I'm going to answer the whole thing, I'd want to look this very carefully and go through.
Okay, I can send it to you if you want. But
the bottom line is this: if we're operating,
I'm just happy Darth's talking to us.
Either we're going to predicate, and that includes form syllogism. We'll either do so with an accurate representation and framework of the Christian worldview or not. And I'm trying to give you an example. Before I was interrupted, I want to show you how sometimes these syllogisms are framed in not an accurate representation of the Christian worldview. So they'll say something like this. Well, if there's not going to be any sin in heaven, God could have created a world where there wasn't sin in the first place. And because they don't know theology, because you see, in the doctrine of salvation,
right,
God first creates a world of agents who can rebel against him. Once they rebel, God initiates the plan of the plan of redemption. So that when Christ dies on the cross, God grants us a new nature. Okay, and that this is a theological doctrine within biblical theology. When we're born again, God gives us a new nature that resides within our soulish experience, along with our physical existence. When we die, our physical body dies, and we are then when we're unalived, we are then freed from that old nature, and we will live on as an agent who can make choices. But when we're born again, we are in essence asking God not only to free us from the penalty of sin, but the presence of sin, which is a disposition, which is a nature. So upon salvation, we are granted a new nature that will live on, and we will forever be free from sin. But because the Philbros aren't looking at this from a biblical theological perspective, they make in errors. The same is true when we talk about God having reasons to allow people. Okay, and typically,
wait, real quick, can I ask a question? I just want to clarify. I assume like all of this stuff that you've said so far is something that
are you a Christian?
No.
Okay, so then the point is this: if in the Christian worldview, hold on a second. No, stop, because I'm going to forget. Okay. Hold the clarifying question.
Okay.
If in the Christian worldview, it is irrational to call anything God says or does into question. It's utterly irrational,
right,
because you have you have no basis to do so.
Right.
So if you're forming, if you're formulating a syllogism, okay, if you're forming a syllogism of reasoning, and you're critiquing the God of the Bible, you're either going to critique him as he really is, or you're treating God, you're critiquing him syllogistically as a hypothetical.
Right, and that's something you know, right?
Right. No, but the point is,
but that's something you know.
What do I know?
Like all these things that you've clarified about the position, that's something that you know to be true about Christianity.
Yes.
Okay.
Now,
you already agreed,
sir. Listen, slow down.
I just need to clarify.
See, this is what I don't like about people who machine gun talk.
I'm going to forget.
Okay.
You clarified earlier that knowledge is a subset of belief, and you agreed that a person believing Proposition P is a state of affairs.
Yes.
So if the things that you're telling me are things that you know about Christianity, then it just follows that it's a proposition that you believe about Christianity. And we've already covered that in premise 1 through 5 of the argument.
Is there? Wait a minute, dude. I'm really getting a little bit irritated. What is your point here?
Yeah, I only have 3 more premises and then I'm done. You want to go one by one?
Okay, do me a favor. Send me all of these, and I'll go over them with a fine-tooth comb. Now, here's the problem. Can I just
finish the argument real quick for the audience?
Hold on a second. Are you reasoning to me? In which model of reality are you reasoning to me from?
Yeah, I'll get to that right after I finish this argument. Okay.
No, you're going to tell me right now we're going to stop talking.
By the same
he has no grounds to stand on.
Okay.
Zach, are you trying to say...
Are you reasoning? You see, all of listen carefully. Your entire syllogism is a performative contradiction.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
Okay. So the point is, I don't need to get into the nitty-gritty.
Do you know?
Dude, I'm going to stop talking with you real fast. are you formulating syllogisms and discursive reasoning to me from a non-Christian model?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a
Well, here's the
performative
problem.
contradiction.
That's a performative
Yeah, you have
contradiction
no
because
grounds to stand on.
listen to me. You're committing a performative contradiction because you don't have an ultimate frame of reference for reason.
Oh,
What's your
is that
ultimate?
something you know?
What is your? Okay. Hey, dude.
Wait,
I've been doing this for 16 years. Don't
many?
try this Phil bro crap with me like the way teenagers do. Now, you are reasoning to me, okay, implicitly in the questions and assertions that you're making to me.
Mm-hmm.
Is that within the framework of your non-Christian worldview?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what's the ultimate context that will provide for your capacity to appropriate or actualize reason and logic?
He doesn't know.
Oh, do I need one?
He doesn't know.
Yes.
Oh, is that something you know?
All right, dude.
God,
Are you thick? Are you? How old are you?
I'm dummy thick.
No. How old are you?
Huh?
Yeah, he's behaving like a child.
I'm asking you sincerely, for my benefit. I like
You're
to know
asking me
the age
sincerely, how old
bracket
am
that
I?
I'm dealing with. Yeah. How old are you?
I was born 2,000-year-old yesterday. That's how old I am.
Okay. I'm going to give you a technical response that was found. That was in the archives of Cornelius Van Til to respond to you. Stop fucking interrupting me.
Okay.
So, I'm going to give you. You know what? I'll just leave it. We're going to keep on getting interrupted.
No, because I actually have a real question.
I'm going to give you. Hey, Wright.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a rather strident, brief response. And I discovered this in the archives of Cornelius Van Til in dealing with people like you. The technical response is, fuck you. You're being an asshole, okay? Now, I'm done with you because you're being a sophist. You have now been exposed as a fake, a phony, and a fraud, which is the 3F syndrome, tongue in cheek. Okay, because now you're claiming that you are reasoning to me and critiquing something, okay, from a frame of reference that doesn't provide for it.
And you know that it doesn't provide for it, right?
Yes, I do know that.
Okay, so that's something you know.
Okay, hey, listen.
And you already agreed that the person believing in Proposition P is a state of affairs.
I'm done talking. You're wasting your time talking to me because you're such an asshole.
That's a state of affairs.
You're such an asshole.
Is it
You
true
don't
that
stop
I'm an
talking. Okay, yeah, fuck off. You know what?
Is it
Get
true
rid
that
of
I
this
should
guy.
fuck off?
Get rid of this guy or I'm leaving. You know what? I'm
I think you should
blocking your
block
account.
him too.
This is
Yeah,
frustrating.
I'm
let's
blocking you.
block him.
Yeah, you're just
let's
an
block
asshole.
that guy.
We got rid of it.
That's unfortunate.
Everybody just block him.
Okay, see, this is what we're talking about. That people will simply resort to assholery. The guy has a master's degree in assholery, while pretending with semantics to camouflage his assholery in the form that he's being logical and reasonable. You see, all I had to do was ask him one question, and he went into a full blown asshole on steroids. Okay.
You
know, are you reasoning
because he realized that he doesn't have any foundation.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I had
him
wanted to
hanging around
ask
with
him
the
if he was
podcast,
asking, was he saying that like God could have morally sufficient reasons to allow for his
Don't you
revelation
understand?
to be misinterpreted?
They're doing mental gymnastics, these Phil bros, and he was a Phil bro, and he's an absolute asshole. Okay. Because if they don't play this game, they get destroyed. And all I had to do was ask him a simple question. Is your reasoning, logic, and syllogism to me within the framework of your model of reality? He said yes. I said, good. Okay. What ultimately is your ontological referent that grants logic and reason? And you see, he was a deer in the headlights. So all he could do was resort to being an asshole.
I think I've seen him hang out with that Tupac guy too.
Yeah, he was just
really?
doing a light version of Tupac.
Are they like in the same Discord or something?
Yeah. Yeah, and you see, they don't poll this kind of stuff in real life because real men in real life situations, a certain number of men would just clock you, and then you'd have to go get a partial.
Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't say that to your face.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Yeah,
I,
it's just, and if you can even sound the sound of his voice, he doesn't even sound old enough to shave, so.
probably doesn't shave.
Yeah.
So I was this is a totally like random thought that occurred to me while you were talking when you said when you brought up the Antichrist, and I swear I've seen a lot more Christians now talking about Trump being the Antichrist, and that just seems like where are they getting this nonsense?
It's Looney Tunes. If you there are different eschatological views, and so if
Yeah.
people believe in a literal Antichrist, that would fall within the scope of premillennialism. Okay, because you're not the Antichrist is not going to be a literal person within amillennialism, postmillennialism, or in preterism. So the Antichrist, the beast in the book of Revelation, is going to be a head of state in a 10-nation federation, which experts in eschatology refer to as the revived Roman Empire. And that's going to be somewhere within the realm of Western Europe. Okay? So
like the EU or something.
Yeah, it could be the EU or an extension of the EU. It'll be just a 10-nation federation. And my guess is that there's going to be some type of unification in Western Europe. Could be the EU, it could be a modification of it, extension, whatever. And then it's going to be extended to the world. It'll be like the United States of the world. Okay, because
through like a one world government. You mean?
Yeah, there'll be a one world government, but each state will still be just like you have individual state. You have individual states within the union. There's going to be a worldwide union with separate countries, but they're all within that union. Kind of
like a
Star Trek Federation.
UN.
Yeah. And so the head of state will then ascend to that one world government. Okay. And he's going to be a man of peace, a man of solution. He's going to fool everybody except a small number of people who become Christians at that time. I hold to a pre-tribulational rapture before the 7-year period and the rise of the Antichrist. But this idea that Trump is the Antichrist is just ridiculous.
Do you think that we'll ever see that like in our lifetime?
Well, Darth won't.
We could, but given that I'm 65 and probably a lot older than you, in terms of probabilities, you're more likely to see it than me. Okay?
That's fair.
So, yeah. Oh, can you please remove that? I've been to the zoo last week and I already saw the monkeys. That's another moron.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've dealt with him extensively. He's another pathological liar.
What do you think about people who point to like the rise of AI as like
I certainly think that AI can certainly take a part within the one world government, because when you have when it talks about the mark of the beast, we can understand the mark of the beast literally or figuratively. It makes no difference.
Right.
Okay. That you have to acquiesce to either the mark or
anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. In order to buy or sell. Mm-hmm. So remember, I don't know how old you guys are. Any of you have vivid memories of 9/11? If you're old enough.
Yeah.
The standards for the standards for security and identification skyrocketed from before 9/11.
Do you remember when you could be like 15 minutes before your plane flight and get to the airport?
Oh,
and just
yeah. Even when there was hijackings, like in the 60s when I was a kid, even after that event, there weren't. I don't even remember that there were bombings of airplanes. But once these major terroristic, see, this is why people will give up their rights or certain security for peace. So all it's going to take is one major terrorist action to form a one world unit. So we're headed toward a one world monetary system. And that's going to be facilitated in all likelihood because of our advanced computers and AI. All right.
Uh-huh.
So that's why the United States was formed in part, was to have a common bond, a common union, and to have a common monetary system in order to facilitate increasing prosperity and instead of people having different. That's why the European Union instituted the euro. So we're going to see that come to fruition in the world. That'll be some type of one world monetary unit, but then you're going to have a governing body over that, right? Now, I'm not saying that that's going to be the one world government, but it could easily facilitate that, And then we have Israel back in its homeland. It's surrounded by unbelievable millions of Muslims that want to wipe them off the face of this earth.
Yeah,
and that problem.
Charter.
Okay, so even with the vanquishing temporarily of Hamas and Hezbollah, and the significant destruction of Iran, this has not done away with the Islamic threat to Israel's survival. And from a premillennial perspective, what triggers Jesus' return is that there will be military forces that will join together, poised to invade Israel, right? And that's what's going to trigger Jesus' return. Okay? Because the Bible teaches he will save Israel. He's going to save Israel from destruction.
Mm-hmm. What do you ever imagine what that would look like?
Well, we see precursors to that, like, for example, in the 6 Days War or the Yom Kippur War, where there were three surrounding nations. You had Egypt, Jordan, and Syria that sought to wipe Israel out. Mm-hmm. The next time around, more significantly, is going to be a multi-nation group that's much larger. Okay? The hatred of the Jewish state and Jews is systemic and ingrained in Islam. This is not merely an ethnic hatred. It's systemic because this is what the Quran teaches. The Quran teaches us. And so unless somebody repents of the false religion of Islam, it's difficult for your average Muslim to jettison this. Now, there are certain instances where we have, like, for example, the son of the founder or leader of Hamas. I don't know that he became a Christian, but he repented of all this hatred
or something. What do they call him?
I don't know his name is, but when you see him on TV, he devastates all these people. But hopefully, maybe he's on his way to becoming a Christian. But what I'm saying is, for your average Muslim, and this is true of people throughout human history, people in Acts 17, it says God places every person in their time and place of birth so that they will seek him, though he's not far from them. So God places everybody in their time and place of birth, knowing all counterfactuals, knowing what decisions they would make and whether they are going to turn to him for salvation. So God places everybody in their time and place of birth so that they will seek him, but he knows full well that most of them will not. And so what happens is people typically adopt a model of reality which is the most convenient for them. And that's what's prevailing around them, right? And anyone at any time can abandon that in their own thinking, and then within a generation, that religious paradigm could just dissolve. I mean, Islam could end in 1 year if these people just say, well, they just become indifferent to it.
Yeah.
So this strident Islamic mentality that Islam will eventually dominate everything. And this is what Islam teaches. This is their goal. This is why the Crusades happened, because, and so they are bound and determined one day or another, one day or another, that sooner or later, Allah is going to bring about the destruction of Israel.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're committed to this. And
I saw a funny shirt the other day as a guy walking around. It said, "Normalize the Crusades."
Oh, that's funny. That's something similar to what Ann Coulter said. She said, tongue in cheek, we should invade their countries, kill all their religious leaders, and force them to become Christians, and then we won't have this problem anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Easy.
Because Christianity,
that's what they propose, right? With their
Christianity allows you to defect or to diverge. Islam does not.
Right. Apostasy.
But she was saying it in tongue in cheek.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think people get her wrong. I think she says a lot of stuff. She just has that dry delivery, and people just get their.
I have read most of her books, and her books are far more well researched and presented than what she does. And she comes across as a very strong woman, and that turns some people off. Her recent criticisms of Trump that he's made in the last couple of years, I'm just like, I don't know what's going on with her. You know, she's not a crazy person. I generally agree with her, but I think she's coming around and being less critical of Trump's policies. I think she expects too much too fast, you know, and
Well,
that's not.
she was kind of a provocateur to begin with, right?
Yeah. I mean,
And we
they
need
all
those.
laughed at her on the Bill Maher show when they said, which of the candidates is best poised to become the president of the United States? And she says, Donald Trump. And
She
the
nailed
entire audience, Bill Maher and the panel, were all laughing with tears coming out of their eyes at her statement that Donald Trump was poised to be the person who could best capture the White House.
Yeah. Well, that's why I have hope for Spencer Pratt in LA.
Well, if they don't cheat, he has a very he's
They sure are
absolutely
taking a
within
long
striking
time to
distance.
count those votes, aren't they?
Well, look. Did you hear what Donald Trump said about the 2020 election? He says we now have definitive proof. We know exactly what they did, and we know who did it. He just said that just a day or 2 days ago.
For them to take action on that, you know.
Well, I hope that they do. Yeah. I really do, and maybe that was one among several reasons why Pam Bondi was asked to resign, because she wasn't moving fast enough. Okay.
Oh, really?
And you have to remember that the feds, when they bring a case, they have like a greater than 90% conviction rate. So when they bring a case, it's got to be ironclad against those people that they're going to bring to trial. So if you're being prosecuted by the feds, in all likelihood, you're going to lose.
It would be good to see these people deserving of prosecution actually brought to trial.
I would be in seventh heaven seeing the people who are actively involved in stealing the election. I personally,
if that isn't treason, I don't know what is.
I'm not a conspiratorialist. Okay, I've gotten into arguments with relatives, close friends and acquaintances, and even people online who are given to conspiracy theory. But I believe that there's abundant indication that cheating went on, and all they had to do was cheat in a certain number of the swing states.
A few,
on
just
election,
a few, yeah,
just a few. And so on election night, they stopped counting in a number of these districts, states where Trump was way ahead. Then when we get into the wee morning hours, all of a sudden Biden was ahead by hundreds of thousands of votes. It's statistically impossible.
It's like the percentages just flipped.
Yeah. Crazy. So I'm just to let you know, I'm not a conspiratorialist.
Right.
But
Well, I know you're not, because I've heard you rail against flat earthers.
They're just trolls.
Yeah. What?
Okay.
I mean,
but I apologize. I apologize for using coarse language, but that little punk ass deserved it.
Who? Oh,
so, I put up with a certain amount of disagreement, but once he made it clear that he's just bullshitting and trolling.
Yeah, I mean, he just started trolling at the end. I thought it was a good discussion up until he pulled the mask off, you know.
Well, this is what happens if you listen to me dealing with skeptics who don't get kicked because they're just being utterly obnoxious. The mask always comes off at the end because they can't withstand the questions that I ask. Because I've been doing this for 16 years and I've developed these precise questions, to pull the mask off. So this is why Graham Oppie, not that I'm smarter than he is, that's why he was caught flat-footed. He couldn't answer the question I asked him.
What question did you ask him?
Well, I asked him initially, how is it that God doesn't exist? The same question I asked the other 7 or 8 atheists with PhDs on the different AMAs. And he started going into his professorial, idea of parsimony that, we've got God in the natural world versus the natural world. And so I didn't want to listen to his, his community college lecture. I said, so how is naturalism even coherent? How do you account for the unity that represents, and by the way, I'm paraphrasing what I say, because if you go back to the recording, I didn't say this precisely, but I'm saying it for clarification. How do you account for the unity that is present from a small to a grand scale? What actualizes the unity and diversity that exists with independence from God? And his answer was, I see books on my shelf. I didn't ask you if you believe it. I didn't ask if you accept that there's unity and diversity. What actualizes it? Because if you're an atheist, then you are at least implicitly saying the unity and diversity that is a fundamental parameter of the world exists with God independence. Okay, good. What's the something else that actualizes a unity and diversity in the world? And then it's crickets. Okay. How do they account for that? They can't.
You just be a mereological nihilist and say there is no real diversity.
Okay, then you forfeit the ability to rationally predicate, because rational predication requires that there be fundamental unity and diversity. You can't speak intelligent. If I said to you the sky is blue or the dog wags its tail on the grass, if you remove unity and diversity as a fundamental parameter, then there's no rational predication. And this is a central concept in Van Til's thinking, especially as it relates to the one and the many problem. How do we account for what is most fundamental in the world? Is it the unity or diversity? And this cannot be accounted for apart from the self-revealing triune God. And this is a theme that I bring up all the time. Like they want to talk about science this, and they say, does science require the uniformity of nature?
Ooh, or just presuppose it.
Think about these crazy. These crazy atheistic idealists who think God is not necessary. You ever seen one of those people?
Well,
I wouldn't call them people.
They're bluffing. Okay, they're bluffing because
what does that even mean?
In order to say God is not necessary, I was going to say presuppose, but they abuse this word. They think that biblical presupposition. This is how stupid these people are on a wide scale. They think that biblical presuppositionalism entails, well, I presuppose God, therefore God. That's not how Van Til used the term.
No.
I just got done reading a doctoral dissertation entirely on. I got done reading a doctoral dissertation that was entirely on Van Til. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I just got done reading a doctoral dissertation that was entirely on Van Til's.
Darth, your mic is cutting out.
Yeah, we can't hear you. Please keep doing it.
Okay. So the doctoral dissertation went into great specificity.
There, Darth?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Darth.
Did
Hello?
he disconnect?
Hear you.
Oh man.
Crap, I was going to ask him some questions. I missed out.
Can you hear me?
Maybe he left. Maybe he was done.
No, I'm still here.
I still see his picture there.
Jim, do you want to talk about
what happened was...
Oh, I can hear
you now. What happened was I was operating on cellular, and I have a nearby Wi-Fi source, and it switched to my nearby Wi-Fi source rather than cellular. I turned off the Wi-Fi. I turned off the Wi-Fi. Okay.
Oh, nice.
Okay. I've also been on panels before where the panel can't hear, but chat can hear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Too.
So
I don't know. Could be on our.
So when you say God is not necessary,
it's like it glitches out and then you can't hear it. It's weird.
Right.
Okay. So when you say God is not necessary, you're just making an indirect restatement of the denial of God. So then what is necessary that replaces God? In order to falsify A, you have to present not A. If you're going to say God is not necessary, then you have to present its negation to negate God.
Yeah, I think they would just say that consciousness is necessary, right?
That is a colossally stupid answer.
Wait, Darth, let me handle this. Yo, Alex, is consciousness perfect?
I'm
look at him, deer in the headlights.
Yeah. So when I ask some of the Phil bros, since you reject that God is and that he is the necessary ground of being, what is it that is ultimate that dictates all that is and cannot be?
Right.
Now, when they answer, when I invoke what they say, it's a dead giveaway that they have no idea what they're talking about. No. So I'll say, what dictates fundamentally what is and cannot be, since you reject that it's God? And they go, reality. Yeah. You say, so everything dictates. Everything dictates.
That's the exact voice they have.
So my left pinky fingernail in part causally dictates the spin of an electron. So when they say everything, or they'll go the quantum realm, or they'll talk about the wave function. The wave function. I mean, it's just unbelievably stupid.
Yeah.
Darth, how do you understand grounding? Like, I hear that a lot. What do you mean by that?
Grounding could mean a justification for a proposition, or it can refer to what is necessary to provide for any and all contingency.
What's your views on something like phenomenological conservatism?
Oh, it's phenomenal conservatism. So I think phenomenal conservatism is okay when you're just being colloquial. You're talking about things.
So like
right?
Initial justification?
No, I'm just talking about just casual talking about things in life. I mean, we all use phenomenal conservatism quite regularly. But when you're going to use it as a universal, then it presents a problem. Because then when you say it seems this way,
right?
Okay,
that's just brute.
All right. Okay, when it seems that, like somebody says, well, it just seems to me that there's no God.
Get this.
How is that even meaningful?
Yeah.
Okay. And they'll say in the absence of a defeater, say, well, I got defeaters for that.
Yeah.
So when you
exactly.
so phenomenal conservatism,
like defeaters.
Kind of just
phenomenal conservatism is closely related to common sense. Was it? It's common. No, it's called Scottish or reading common sense. What's the word? I'm blanking out. I'm showing my age.
Like Morian.
It's common sense. It's really, if you look it up, it's related to Scottish. Oh, it's common sense realism.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's not that
dangerous.
it's entirely. No. It's common sense realism is very closely akin to phenomenal realism. That there are certain things that are bottom basic common sense and that are to be considered that's self-evident. But when you use it universally, then you have a problem. Because then how do you have something in what category is something that's self-evident? Is it to be categorized as creaturely or brute?
Right.
Or under S. Or
Right. Sounds like creaturely.
And if it's not creaturely, that the fact in question is only a fact because it is emblematic and reflective of God who makes it a fact. Right. If that's set to the side, then the only thing that one is left with is a brute fact. And when they say brute fact, they're happy with that, but they don't realize that brute facts are mute facts, as Van Til would say. And so a brute fact would be, upon analysis, uninterpretable. And if it's uninterpretable, it's unintelligible. So brute facts don't mean anything.
What about that there was a person running some kind of skeptical theism argument? I had a question about that kind of exchange.
All right, I got to run. It was great talking to y'all. Have a good one.
Couldn't you say that by the same?
Hopefully, I can talk to you in the future, Darth.
I'll follow you. Follow me back.
I will do that.
I stream on a regular basis, so just pop in wherever I'm on, whether I'm on my stream or somebody else's.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, couldn't somebody say, Darth, that by the same skeptical principle used by skeptical theism, we're not in a position to judge whether God has a morally sufficient reason for permitting us to be mistaken about any particular proposition?
Okay. Unless we are starting in terms of our model reality with the perfect self-revealing God, okay, then there is no basis to be rationally skeptical toward anything. It would simply be an irrational invocation of skepticism. So self-proclaimed skeptics they're irrational because they don't have a final referent.
Right. Okay. Well, if that's okay, then that's true. Then it would just, so then there would be this thing where, like, okay, then if that's true, then for any proposition P, it seems like we're not in a position to rule out the possibility from a creaturely point of view that God can allow us to be tempted by, or like, our faith tested by falsely believing in proposition P.
No, we cannot be deceived about what God intends for us to know. But if we reject what God purposes that we know, God will permit us to be deceived, including about that which he has purposed to make us to know.
Okay. That's okay. And what if somebody said like, okay, then if for any proposition P, we're not in a position to rule out the possibility that God is doing that, then our belief in P is undermined.
Look, we have to always keep in mind a biblical framework.
Right.
And not come up with reasoning, syllogisms, or whatever it is that are not within the biblical framework. And so in the framework, if let's say I go to my mechanic and he tells me, well, the red light on the car, you need a new water pump. Okay. And I go, oh, okay. I didn't know that I could trigger that. And go, oh yeah, it triggers it. But in actuality, it's my catalytic converter is getting a little bit flaky, and it's triggering it. So what he just does is he just resets the controller mechanism, because he knows it's going to take a number of days for the computer to run, its analysis to re-trigger it. So he tells me that he replaces the water pump, and then I look, the red light's off. Okay, fine. I got deceived by that. Now, I didn't get deceived because I rejected something that was true, but there are some things that God will allow. God will allow moral evils to occur, and that's other people deceiving me. But we cannot be deceived as to what God purposes for us to know.
Right.
Like that Christ is Lord and Savior. Yeah.
Not deceived, because God can't do anything that's against his nature, and he's not a liar. God, but
God himself does not actively
deceive, right?
Right. So in a fallen world, God can allow me to be deceived,
right,
by a trickster over certain matters.
Okay,
but I cannot be deceived. I cannot be deceived with that which God purposes that I will know via his revelation.
Right.
But I can be deceived about that if I am rejecting God's revelation, and then that's where the temporal judgment comes in.
Well, then it seems like from the agreements that you've made so far, it just seems like then the conclusion would just be, for any proposition P, our belief in P is undermined.
Are you the same guy I talked to earlier?
No. That was yeah.
The bottom line is, in a fallen world, God allows us to be deceived about some things. Okay,
right.
that's clear. That's clear in the Bible.
Yeah, but that something could be anything, right?
No.
Well.
No, that would
I thought I heard you agree to that.
That would contradict
proposition P is a state of
affairs. Can I be deceived that Jesus is Lord?
Could God allow you to be deceived in thinking that? Yes.
No. God will not allow me to be deceived.
Yeah, and that's Jesus. Right?
Let's listen to me carefully. God will not and cannot allow me to be deceived.
Right.
On that which he intends for me to know. So I cannot be deceived by believing that Jesus is Lord, because God intends for me to know that he's Lord. I can then be deceived about Jesus' identity if I rebel against God's revelation.
Right, and that's something that you know.
There are certain things that I know that God purposes that I will know.
Right. And that is something that you know about Christianity. That's something you know to be true.
Look, if you don't hold to that principle, then you're screwed, because then you're not going to have any grounds for rational predication, because rational predication is going to require a certain degree of knowing things.
Right. So it seems like you agree that though God
can you have rational predication without true knowledge?
Is rational predication required for true knowledge?
If there is no true knowledge, can there be rational predication?
No, but we both know that, right?
Okay. Are you a Christian?
No.
Well, then your context or frame of reference for knowing is not the context that I have for knowing things. So my concept of knowing and your knowing things are antithetical. Do you understand that?
Yeah. Is that something you know?
Okay, sir, you understand that you and I have utterly antithetical concepts of knowing.
Yeah, that's something that you know, and I know that as well.
Okay, now
we both know that
no, sir. Are you telling me what we know given your framework?
Yeah, I'm saying we both know that.
No, sir. answer. You know what? I'm getting irritated. You're sure sounding like that other guy. Now,
Yeah,
should I
that guy
change my
that
voice
said
or
like
something?
P and not P and something.
yeah, you sound strikingly similar to that punk.
You're gonna strike me?
Okay. Now, listen carefully. What is the ultimate framework or context that actualize your ability to know anything?
Oh, is that something that I need?
Okay, it's him. Get rid of him. You're done. I'm going to block your account.
Is that something that you know?
Who is it? Is it Phil or
Is that a
Vince?
Proposition P?
Is that Phil or Vince?
Vince.
No, it's Phil.
It's Phil.
Okay, Phil, you're blocked. Yeah, you're back here again. You know what? You're a D. Yeah. Bye. Have a nice day. You see, you know what? You know what? You're a pervert, and you know why you're a pervert?
A pervert?
Because I've already. Yeah. Okay. Hey, host, if you don't remove him, I'm gonna leave.
Gonna kick me this time,
Okay.
bro.
Okay. Good. Then I'll be leaving.
Yeah, fuck off, bro.
Okay? Yeah, you're just demonstrating.
Wait,
not
let me
only are you a
quote you something
liar.
by
Okay.
Van Til.
Hey, hosts.
Let me quote you something by
Goodbye.
Van Til.
Okay. Hey, host. If you don't remove him right now, I'll block your account.
Let me do that.
If you don't remove, okay, goodbye. Now I'm gonna block this stream.
Thought the host went AFK.
Don't do that, please. Don't wait. Oh, damn.
Oh, dude, what? I thought you guys were letting him go to record him. There's no way you guys didn't push back on any of that.
Recording for the past 2 hours.
I was gonna say, like, there's no way.
I was just letting Zach have it.
Okay, because there's some of the most
so I was just letting him have it.
Yeah, that was some of the most disgusting rhetoric I think I've heard in 30 minutes. I think I could. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, we got him to participate in little baby games for like 2 hours. It was awesome.
We also got him to say some pretty like nasty racist things against people who weren't even here.
Yeah, he also conceded that skeptical theism entails global skepticism. So that was a W.
Yeah,
Imagine getting like trolled for 2 hours.
I figured that's why no one was speaking up. That's why I kept biting my tongue too. I kind of figured it out.
I saw somebody signal for a crash out, so I was like, well, what would piss him off more than it being the same guy coming up?
Yeah, that was a good one.
That's good.
And then Jim, thank you for your I was just jumping the gun, and then Jim said, "Patience, grasshopper," and I was like, "Oh, you're right."
Yeah.
I was foaming at the bits, bro. I couldn't believe he was agreeing to my premises.
I'm sitting here. I'm like, am I going to do it? No, he knows my name. He knows me. You would see it coming too far away. He follows me. That one works. I'm like, no, let Jim have it. It's his honor. He passed it to you, and I'm like, this will work perfectly.
Yeah, I've been waiting, bro. Dude, I cooked PMARS and Darth with the same argument in a week.
Russell wanted to come up here too to defend, but I don't know if he's still here.
Oh yeah, and then we trolled him that we couldn't hear him.
It was awesome, dude. I love how everybody caught on to that really quickly.
That was such a good group effort of a bit, bro. Sorry, Vince, but I tried to get him to block you and said sorry.
No, that's good, dude. I was literally, if you didn't do that there, I was literally just about to make him crash out, but you got me before. You got it before. It's fine. It worked.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're fine.